alternative to the dealership. ASE and state licensed Hawaii's own Lex Brody's Tire, Brake, and Service Company has won the International Better Business Bureau's 2011 Torch Award for excellence in customer service. Please visit LexBrodys.com for Super Saver mechanical and tire coupons.
Thank you very much. Lex Brody's Tire Company.
Hawaii's Business Authority, KGU, Honolulu.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
Covering the financial and business news you need to know.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. The man who admits shooting teenager Trayvon Martin to death in a confrontation in Sanford, Florida, has surrendered to police. George Zimmerman is being held this evening and will be charged with second-degree murder in the killing of Martin. Sanford Mayor Jeff Triplett appeals for calm now that Zimmerman is in custody.
In response to the announcement made by State's Attorney Angela Corey, we call for continued calm in the city of Sanford, its surrounding communities, and across the nation. This is an event that's touched many hearts and many lives.
Zimmerman could face life in prison if convicted of the charges. Also at SRNnews.com, President Obama says when Ronald Reagan was in the White House, he embraced the principle of millionaires paying higher tax rates.
If it'll help convince folks in Congress to make the right choice, we could call it the Reagan rule instead of the Buffett rule.
The so-called Buffett rule is named after billionaire investor Warren Buffett and is a plan to raise tax rates on the wealthy to at least 30%. But Heritage Foundation senior tax policy analyst Curtis Dubé tells SRN News President Obama's invoking of former President Reagan is uncalled for.
The president is desperate to distract the American people from his failure to put together a coherent economic policy that would get the economy moving and get jobs being created across the economy.
Dubé calls the Buffett rule a gimmick. The Navy has removed an engine and other pieces of a jet that crashed at a Virginia Beach apartment complex last Friday. The Virginian pilot reports that workers in protective gear used a crane to remove the debris. The Navy expects to finish removing debris by the end of the week, and city officials say they're working on a plan to allow residents to return to the apartment complex. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 89 points to close at 12,805. The Nasdaq rose 25. The S&P advanced 10. Oil up $1.68 to close at $102.70 a barrel. This is SRN News.
Most businesses fail because of lack of capital. Is yours next? Does your business need $10,000, $50,000, even $100,000 in lines of credit right now? The good folks at Nevada State Corporate Network can help. Don't wait until it's too late. Get bankable now. What would an infusion of cash do for your business? Or more importantly, what will happen if you don't get the cash your business needs? Nevada State Corporate Network has been serving the business community for over a decade, and in that time has grown to be the nation's largest full-service incorporating, tax, business credit, and asset protection firm. They've helped over 50,000 clients like you. They'll make your business creditworthy and bankable fast. Call or go online to check out their incredible written guarantee for your business to have $50,000 in lines of credit. Call 877-330-9288, 877-330-9288, or go to mycorporatelife.com. That's mycorporatelife.com. Again, call 877-330-9288 or online at mycorporatelife.com.
This is Michael Medved speaking once again with my friend Dr. Thomas Kane, who's founder and director of the Kane Orthopedic Institute right here in Honolulu. Now, Dr. Kane, word has gotten out that you've gotten a great reception on your treatment and innovative care for patients with shoulder, hip, and knee problems.
Nice to talk with you again, too, Michael. Yes, I've received overwhelmingly positive feedback from patients that I've treated at my institute, both surgically and non-surgically.
Okay, Dr. Kane, what's impressed your patients most about the Kane Orthopedic Institute?
Timely appointments, concierge care by my staff, and expert personalized treatment by me. In short, Michael, patients actually get to spend the time they need with the doctor. I take a personal stake in each of their outcomes.
Dr. Kane, your combination of providing old-school quality and high-tech orthopedic treatment is unique in an era of increasing healthcare uncertainty. I urge my listeners to call Kane Orthopedic Institute at 521-2233. That's 521-2233. Call the Kane Orthopedic Institute.
Welcome to ThinkTech Radio's Technology and Media Wednesday with your host, Jay Fidel of Bendet Fidel Attorneys at Law.
Okay, let's start. Welcome back to ThinkTech, raising public awareness on KGU 7:60 a.m. if you hadn't noticed, all around the islands today. I'm your host, Jay Fidel, and I'm here with Chrissy Goffigan. Say hi, Chrissy.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about the First Wind's great new projects in Hawaii with our guest, Kekoa Kaluhiva. External Affairs, is that still your title?
It is.
It's not president yet? Okay, just waiting it out. And Ren Westcoat, Development Specialist, is that your title still?
That's correct.
All right, waiting it out. You guys are vying for CEO, I know that. So say hello, Kekoa. Just let them understand and feel you, okay?
Absolutely. Aloha kako. Thank you for listening in this afternoon.
Okay, nice. Ren?
Hello, and thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for coming down. Really appreciate it, you guys. It's I love nutritious discussions, and I feel we're about to have one. That's what I feel. Okay, we like to talk about business on Mondays, Asia on Tuesdays, tech on Wednesdays, and including energy, the arts on Thursdays, and government on Fridays, and luckily, it's Wednesday. We're here for you every business day. So some thoughts about our conversation tonight, which is entitled First Wind's Great New Projects in Hawaii. Wind is growing faster than any other renewable in Hawaii, and that's really great. Have you ever seen a wind farm? I'm talking to you now. It's quite beautiful. The blades dancing in the sky at peace with the universe. There's a Zen thing there, expressing the powers of the environment. Beautiful like ballet. I told you guys, that's what I think. Beautiful like ballet. And I could personally watch a wind farm all day long. Probably want to have my music too, though, along with it. First Wind is the most active and successful wind farm developer in Hawaii today. They have a splendid record and a splendid project at Kahiava on Maui, which was recently expanded, maybe last year or so. It's really spectacular. And Kekoa showed it to me, a year, 2 years ago? A year ago. Huh?
About a year ago.
Yeah, it was really a great tour, and we really enjoyed it. I've been thinking about it as kind of the model in my mind for all the positives about wind farms. And First Wind also recently opened the wind farm at Kahuku on Oahu, North Shore, and it is also very spectacular, and Kekoa also showed us that. So ThinkTech has had, this great opportunity to see these wind farms. So if you get a chance to see one, you know what I mean. They somehow, my words, they somehow make the land come alive, connecting the earth and the sky. I'm not kidding, is it? It's not poetry. It's just what I think. And most recently, our First Wind broke ground for their most ambitious project that I have seen to date, and that would be Kauai Loa, also in the North Shore, not far from Haleiwa. That's going to be, 70 megawatts?
It's going to be 69 megawatts.
Suppose I said 70.
I wouldn't correct you.
Thank you. And it's going to provide...
I've also applied for about 80 permits in which I had to say 69.
Okay, I'm going with 69. All right. You win this one. So today we're going to talk...
If it's in the EIS, it is reality.
Exactly right. So we're going to talk to these guys and see who and how First Wind goes around. Kekoa Kaluhiva and Ren Westcoat, who can tell us about these projects. And it's such a treat to be able to have this discussion. First Wind's great new projects. So let's look at Kauai Loa first, because it's top down. We want to talk about the most recent news first. What are the specs? What is the, describe for me the project at Kauai Loa. What is it going to look like, and how much is it going to deliver?
Sure thing. Well, the project is, first, the location. It's located near sort of that long straightaway between Haleiwa and Waimea Bay. That if you look Mauka, that's the ahupua of Kauai Loa, or Kauai Loa, depending.
Thank you for that.
Depending on how you want to approach it.
Why do you ask?
The project is on Kamehameha School's land. It includes 30 wind turbines that will be installed toward the end of the year. There are that will be a total of 69 megawatts that will be connected to existing transmission lines that go across the site. There will be a couple of substations that will be your typical substations that are fenced in with electric equipment that you see around the island. So there'll be a couple of substations, and then toward the center of the project, we'll also have just a what we call an O&M building, operations maintenance building, where we have our staff and spare parts and all the wrenches we need to tighten all the bolts on the wind turbines.
I want to talk to you about that. We like wrenches on Wednesday.
Well, yeah, you said the Tech Wednesday. You've managed to get the two least tech savvy people at first.
It was a plot, a scheme. So, it was quite actually a drive to go up there to your dedication. What was that, about a month or maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm. February 24th.
It was great. It was really a beautiful location, and we stood there and overlooking the ocean. It was just spectacular to see down there. And it took a while from the main road, and it seemed to me that, I really couldn't see it from the main road. I had to get way up high before I could actually see it. There's a lot of land up there. Kamehameha School's land, all of it?
Yeah, that's correct. And the project goes, if you imagine sort of the turbines as they're laid out on the landscape, the closest turbines will be about 1 mile Mauka of Kamehameha Highway, and the furthest turbines will be about 4 miles Mauka. So the project extends quite a bit, all the way to Drum Road, for folks that are familiar with that military road.
Right nearby, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. We saw that coming in, yeah. Well, anyway, that was quite a moment, and it was a very impressive opportunity to see and to see the people and to see them talk about it. It was a coming together. You put it together, Kikoa. You did a really beautiful job on that.
Thank you. Thanks.
It was seamless and it was impressive. And when Neil Hannes of Kamehameha Schools got up there, I was bowled over, but then he always bowls me over.
Well, that's what we're excited about, too. On a personal level, Ren and I are both graduates of Kamehameha. So to have a project of this magnitude, offering lease revenue for that particular institution, as well as then promoting ag in that particular Ahupua'a, it's something we really believe in. It's a part of Kamehameha School's master plan for the North Shore, the bigger picture. So we're very excited to be a part of this project.
And Kamehameha is planning to use the property. The Mauka section of the property will be for renewable energy and for cattle grazing.
Oh, that's right. Cattle in and around the windmills, yeah?
Correct. And the Makai
Same thing in Kahuku, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Okay. Yeah, and the Makai section will be, they'll expand the farming operations because the renewable energy project will bring revenue to allow them to expand irrigation and really make that land more productive.
Well, they say, in the future, it's going to pay off to be near renewable energy because it's cheaper if it's closer and all that. And it seems to me this is going to help the North Shore because it's primarily going to service the North Shore. Am I right? How many homes is it going to service? I know it doesn't go directly from the windmill to the home, but theoretically, in a conceptual way.
The project will generate enough energy to serve about 14,500 homes over the course of a year. And same with the Kahuku project, once the turbines are connected, with the wind farms connected to the grid, that energy really goes island-wide. So it's not that it gets to one location first. Somebody explained to me once, this will give you an idea of how non-tech I am, is one of our engineers said, okay, imagine that you're suggesting pouring water into just one side of the bathtub.
I'm going to say I have confusion with this too, but that helps, I hope everybody out there gets this.
Yeah. Once you put it on the grid, it's everywhere.
Yeah. 296-5467, as you were wondering, that's the number of our station, and if you call that number, you'll be able to ask these guys any questions. So it's not a bad idea, and they're really nice, and they'll help you and answer your question, right? So anyway, I really enjoyed that, and I said to myself, gee, this is only the beginning. It was a groundbreaking in February. Now the work begins, and you spoke about your work at Kahiava, wasn't it, Ren? And what happens now? How do we build this thing? Do you need any help? Maybe I can go out there and help do some of the heavy lifting.
Well, when you mentioned your desire to. You could watch them all day long. We have people on payroll that do that.
And they get paid for that.
Yes, they do.
They don't have to pay in. They get paid for that.
That's right. No, the construction process will, right now it starts with grading the roads and the pads for each of the turbines, and then doing the excavation for the foundations. Foundations will be poured in a few months, and meanwhile the substation and the operations building will be built. And HECO is, meanwhile, they're working on building their switch yards. They'll have 2 switch yards, one for each transmission line. And then the turbines arrive in July. June, July, the turbines will arrive, and then we'll begin deliveries end of July through August and September. So that's when we'll be moving, mostly at night. We'll be delivering turbine components to the site. And then the first sign that most people will see of the construction will be once the turbine towers begin to go up in August, September, October. They'll see the towers, and you'll be able to see those from a distance.
I saw some photos, I think, of the turbines that were moved to Kahiava at night. It was really something. If you think of it, when this happens, give me a call. I'll come down, take some pictures of these things being moved on the highway. It's really quite something. They're so huge.
Absolutely.
How tall are they?
These turbines the towers will be 100 meters.
That's 300 feet, but it's 3 sections, right?
It'll be, this one will be, there's four or five sections, these towers. I think they're 5-section towers. And they will be, so each section weighs about 100,000 pounds. And then after the 5 sections are stacked up, they put the nacelle on. That's the heaviest component. That's the gear base. It's French. I really can't.
It's
NACELLE.
You'll learn that here on ThinkTech. Never forget. There'll be a test after. Okay, we're going to come back to this because there's more technology that we have to know about. So for now, I'm going to turn it over to Chrissy, and she's going to tell you what's going to happen. Chrissy?
Okay, so when we come back, we're going to talk about the First Wind's great projects in Hawaii. More on that. Stay tuned.
Hawaii's Business Authority.
No major problems right now. Traffic looks fairly typical for your Wednesday drive home. The last stall was on the H1 in the other direction at the airport exit. The last accident was on the H1 westbound at the Aiea exit. No problems to the windward side or over to Hawaii Kai. If coming into town from the east side, expect slow traffic on the H1 Everbound when you get to UH.
Lex Brody's is celebrating 50 years of keeping Oahu rolling, but their legendary customer service and tires aren't the only things they have to keep you going. Does your vehicle have a fever? Is it overheating? Orthopedics concerns? Ball joints, suspension, knuckles? Under stress? Will it break down? Heat exhaustion? AC not working? Hit a pothole lately and need to see a podiatrist? Foot and tire specialist treating flat tires and bad brakes. Visit Lex Brody's. They're like your family doctor for your car. They perform vehicle checkups, alignments, brakes, oil changes, and more. And they specialize in auto preventative health care. Visit LexBrodys.com and save big on installed Michelin tires and mechanical services. Michelin offers safe, fuel-efficient, long-lasting tires that provide exceptional performance and extraordinary value. Lex Brody's is your alternative to the dealership. ASE and state-licensed Hawaii's own Lex Brody's Tire, Brake, and Service Company has won the International Better Business Bureau's 2011 Torch Award for excellence in customer service. Please visit LexBrodys.com for Super Saver mechanical and tire coupons.
Thank you very much. Lex Brody's Tire Company.
ThinkTech Radio is also sponsored by PacificCap. PacificCap, Hawaii's largest locally based venture capital firm, provides early and later stage financing for Hawaii's high-tech, emerging growth and alternative energy companies. With market focus, experience, and perspectives that are global, PacificCap's roots and heart are local. PacificCap, a local venture capital firm funding Hawaii's global opportunities.
ThinkTech Hawaii is a Hawaii nonprofit corporation organized in the year 2000. Its purpose is to raise public awareness about the importance of technology, energy, agriculture, and globalism to the diversification and expansion of our economy. We do this by television shows on community television and on OC16, by newspaper articles, and by our ThinkTech radio series on KGU 760 AM. We also do it by panel programs and events, including our monthly luncheon programs with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association. ThinkTech, working to raise public awareness in Hawaii. Check us out at thinktechhawaii.com.
You're listening to ThinkTech Radio's Technology and Media Wednesday with your host, Jay Fidel of Bendit Fidel Attorneys at Law.
Okay, we are back. You're listening to ThinkTech Radio on KGU 760 AM with Jay Fidel. I'm your co-host, Christy Goffigan. And today we're talking about First Wind's great new projects in Hawaii with our guest, Keikoa
Kaluhiva.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk later about this.
I know, I'm sorry. Give me till next break. And then Ren Westcote. Right, I got that one.
All right.
So if you guys have any questions, feel free to dial in 296-5467. Right now, we're going to take a look at the wind farms at Kaheava and Kahuku.
Okay, but I just want to put it in perspective. I don't think people really understand the array of possibilities out there right now. And I'll make my view of it, and you guys can agree or disagree. I believe that wind is the industrial model right now. It is the one with the biggest, most efficient payload that we have. It's the one we should be developing. PV is not as big, and it's not necessarily at the industrial level. It's more like residence by residence, building by building, except maybe for the one in Kapolei, East Kapolei. Hoku did that. That's industrial for sure. But that's the only one like that, as far as I know. Oh, the one in Lanai is a fairly industrial PV one in Lanai. But most of the time, wind is the one that gets the job done. Geothermal has a great prospect, but it's later. It's going to be a long time before that gets all organized. OTEC is not ready. The technology needs work. They need nanotechnology and metallurgy and all that before that works. What am I missing? Wave action, not ready. Got corrosion problems. Agricultural biotech. Now there's a real possibility to get through the pricing problem that came up in the Ainako Opono case. So at the moment, it seems to me, disagree if you want, but that wind is really in the center of the channel. Wind is the one that we have to be focusing on. Wind can deliver a couple of hundred megawatts at a time, and that's really the only significant contributor we have at that level. Am I right?
Well,
you can disagree.
No. Can I really disagree? Just waving the wind flag. How can I disagree?
No, that's the way I feel. I'm not,
No, I believe
we haven't discussed this.
Certainly in terms of what technologies are commercially available and are scalable to utility scale, where they can make a difference. This is 5 megawatts, 10 megawatts, 50 megawatts, 100. Certainly, so far to date, wind is far and away the most commercially viable, financeable. You can go, commercial financing for large scale projects. It's just the most market ready technology, and it's been around for decades now, and the equipment's reliable. It's sort of been through a lot of the trials and tribulations that I think some of the newer technologies are now going through. Now that said, another advantage of wind is, I would like to PV, is, I think, with prices coming down, you're going to see bigger and bigger systems. I think there are a lot of opportunities for larger PV projects in Hawaii, specifically because we're one of the few markets where the power price, in most markets, it just doesn't make sense. PV is too expensive. But in Hawaii, if you can build it out at a reasonable cost, you can be competitive with the price that you can get back. So I think we're going to see more and more
agree.
PV,
That's
sure.
absolutely true. Sure.
But if you look at if you compare the energy output of a equivalent PV system versus a wind system, your PV system is going to produce, maybe 20% of the year you're going to be getting energy. Maybe with a tracking system, maybe 26% of the year you'll be getting energy. With a wind project, if you site it in the right areas, you'll get in the 30s or even in the 40% or even higher. So for the same amount of dollars, you're going to get more production out of a large wind project than you will out of a PV project.
Yeah, let me straighten one point out, and that is, PV doesn't operate when there's no sun. That's that. That's what what is that? That's Energy 101.
Okay. And that happens at least once a day.
Really? Depends on your sleeping hours. But wind can run 24 hours. However, the wind changes with the sunrise and the sunset and the weather, right? All that. So you can't, you can't assume that it's going to be steady all the time.
No, absolutely. In fact, you can assure you that it's not.
But there is the possibility, though, that you can have meaningful, productive wind in the middle of the night when there's, no sun and it's not either sunrise or sunset.
Absolutely.
So when you're looking at when the utility is looking at bringing renewable energies on to support the grid to replace their conventional generation, which they can run anytime they want to throw the switch, I think they would like to see both wind and solar, because then when one is not pushing power, the other may be During the night when it's windy, you're getting power from wind. During the day when there's no wind, you're getting power from PV. So having more, I think, having both, I think is a value to everybody.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, that's exactly right.
When you shake it and bake it on this, aside from the conventional stuff with oil and coal and whatever we have over there, pointing to Campbell, aside from that, there's wind, there's PV, there's geothermal. That's it. Well, there's some modest amount of biodiesel right now, modest. But that's really it. I don't think people fully understand this. All these other possibilities, they're possible. They're in the pipeline, but they're not happening right now. They're not. It's not. You can't actually cite a project and go and do it right now, except for wind, PV, and geothermal is kind of locked into 38 megawatts in Pune. But that's sort of a defined, contained source. So then it becomes wind and PV. That's what we got. I don't think people realize that. So everybody out there realize that, okay? Going to the technology now. So we were talking about, at least for a minute more, Kauai Loa. You're going to deliver these big windmills in the middle of the night. You're going to hook them up. When is it going to be done? What kind of horizon do you have from dedication to groundbreaking? I want to put it on my calendar. Yeah,
sure. Well, our ribbon cutting ceremony.
Exactly.
We will be done by the end of this year. So you can plan on the ribbon cutting ceremony being in 2012.
Well, that's pretty interesting because would you say February was the. What is it? Very long ago. So we're talking about doing the whole job in less than 9 months for the whole. That's pretty quick when you think about the scope of the project.
And our Kahuku project took longer, but the Kahuku project involved a very sophisticated, first-of-its-kind battery storage system, which will not be required at Kauai Loa.
Why not?
The Kahuku is sort of in a unique situation. It's on the end of a radial, 46 kV radial transmission distribution line that has significant variation in frequency and voltage. So the Kahuku battery system, and at the same time, the turbines that we're putting in didn't have their own independent voltage control. So the battery system, what it does is it allows, as you imagine the wind accelerates and decelerates, and as a result, the power that comes out of wind turbines goes up and down. So it goes up and down several times a minute. So every few seconds, you get a gust of wind, you get more power, you get the wind dies off, you get less power. So that really is not good for voltage. And so the power that we're putting out, if without a battery system out there, because it's at the end of a line, and with the battery system allows it to sort of buffer the power that comes out and to control the voltage and the frequency on that line, and to essentially you can think of it as really putting it through a filter and smoothing out the curves up and down of that output of that project.
So that's really interesting, because if you go into it naive like me and then you assume that it's going to be up and down all the time. You assume that the grid is stable, so in order to make the up and down connect with the grid, you've got to have some battery or a smooth out system. This is very interesting what you're talking about. It really depends on where on the grid and at the end of what line you are.
Exactly, and most of it really depends on grid size, because like we're talking about a very big bathtub. If you're talking about the
bathtub,
the mainland is all the mainland. It's a huge grid. So the variations of one wind farm really aren't going to swing the voltage of one line or the system to a discernible level. On Oahu, the grid is much smaller. Out at the end of a radial line, you'll feel those effects. You'll feel those effects just in managing that line.
Well, this reminds me. I think it was one of the comments made at the Kauai Loa groundbreaking about how you wind up. A company like First Wind winds up spending many happy hours, engineer to engineer, talking about these issues with HECO to make sure everybody's happy with the connection. And I guess I realized from what you said that that's absolutely necessary. You've got to do that. It's no two connections are the same. They all have their own issues and their own advantages, disadvantages, and solutions. That's really a lesson, I think.
Well, if it wasn't clear, the Kahuku wind farm has the first battery system for any wind farm in the U.S. at this size, utility scale size. So we're in the process of constructing the second phase of Kahiava on Maui now, and that will also have a battery system, actually larger than Kahuku.
And this is because those two wind farms are in different situations, and they, at least by HECO's analysis, they require the battery systems in order to smooth out the curve and not disrupt the grid that they're going to connect to. It's an art form. Somebody has to write a book. Is there a book?
Not yet.
There's a bill in the legislature for a reliability administrator person who's supposed to look into these questions of connectability. And I guess it has a pretty good chance of passing. That'll be very interesting to see how that changes things. But what's going to change things now is something different. It's basically Chrissy Goffigan telling us that we got a break, and that's going to change everything for about 2 minutes.
Jay. But when we come back, we will look at Molokai and Big Wind with Keikoa and Ren. So stay tuned to Think Tech Radio on KGU 760 AM.
Got it.
Hawaii's Business Authority.
Got one new accident reported. This one's in Aiea on Kamehameha Highway at Laulima Street. The freeways look typical, no problems going east to Kalanianaole Highway on the way out to Hawaii Kai. Going west, the H1 slows at the Radford Drive overpass. The Moana Lewis slows at the top of Red Hill. If coming into town from the west, it's jammed and backed up as usual at the Middle Street merge.
I'll never forget.
This week, Acura of Honolulu and Automart USA proudly announced a Salute to Our Military, an exciting event to welcome home our returning service members and thank all of our active duty retired military and their families for their service and sacrifice. Visit our stores and receive the special treatment you deserve, a $500 accessories allowance to dress up your new Acura with finance rates as low as 0.9% APR, or browse our huge inventory of pre-owned cars and get $500 off our lowest website pricing. With your new Acura, you'll get free oil changes for 2 years. And with every car sold to our military, we'll donate $100 to the Wounded Warrior Project to assist the soldiers who need it most. We'll have food trucks, fun, and a chance to win a new iPad 2 or a Neighbor Island sweetheart getaway to reunite a lucky couple. Military appreciation comes standard at Acura of Honolulu and Automart USA every day, not just 1 month out of the year. So don't wait. Stop by our easy-to-find locations today on Ala Moana Boulevard and get the special benefits you've earned.
Think Tech Radio is sponsored by the Hawaii Academy of Science, supporting science and education in Hawaii since 1925. For half a century, the Hawaii Academy of Science has run the Hawaii State Science and Engineering Fair, an annual competition that encourages over 7,000 middle and high school students from across the state in both public and private schools to love science. The nonprofit Academy also supports the Pacific Symposium for Science and Sustainability and Science Cafe. For more information about the Hawaii Academy of Science, visit hawaii.edu and search for Academy of Science.
Think Tech Radio is also brought to you by Arkanoetics, a Hawaii-based high-tech company that focuses on multidisciplinary engineering and scientific research for the development of human-centered technologies with physiological and environmental wireless sensors and embedded intelligence on a diversity of electronic platforms. It is a company that has successfully conceived and developed products for the government and the military, and whose customers and partners include Fortune 500 companies across several industries. Arkanoetics.
You're listening to Think Tech Radio's Technology and Media Wednesday with your host, Jay Fidel of Bendit Fidel Attorneys at Law.
Think Tech Radio on KGU 760 AM with your host Jay Fidel. I'm Chrissy Goffigan, co-hosting today, and we're talking about First Wind's great new projects in Hawaii with Keikoa Kaluiva and Ren Westcoats.
You know, I always like to say that energy is the tech was supposed to be. And what I mean is that energy is the tech industry in Hawaii, and we are learning a lot. You guys must be learning a lot too, because it always changes, and every time you look, you have newer, better, bigger, more robust technology coming down the pike on these turbines, and they get to be pretty expensive too. So, what's the state of technology on turbines? You're checking it out all the time. I know you are.
Well, yeah. I believe I established my lack of credentials in tech.
No, okay, Kikoa.
Yeah. They're white. They're 3-bladed. Single pole.
Now, commercial wind turbines have been around for a while, but I think the industry, a couple of changes have occurred. I think over time, people have tried to build bigger and better wind turbines. So what happens is you see, the industry standard every few years gets larger. So it used to be that the 1 megawatt or the 1.5 megawatt machine was standard as of 2004, 2005, when we built Kaiava with 1.5 megawatt machines. Now the 2.5 machine, 2.3, 2.5 megawatt machine is what we've put on at Kahuku and at Kawailoa. And you see now, I believe the project on Maui that Sempra is doing will have 3.0.
Ulapalakua. That's next week, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
They're groundbreaking there.
Mm-hmm. And so the turbines keep getting larger. And I think the advantage is, while the machine is somewhat larger, you can put one turbine up where you would have, Kahiawa, for instance, we have 1.5 megawatt machines. You can put half as many machines up for the same amount of production.
Is it that a bigger machine needs more wind to turn the blades?
Yes, it is.
So what happens in a light wind? They don't turn?
Each wind turbine has sort of a cut-in speed. When the wind's a certain speed, then they will start turning and start producing, and that will increase up to the sort of the peak of its power curve. So what we do is a site suitability study to determine what's the best machine for this location, and we'll find the most productive machines that are available for specific wind conditions.
And you're not locked into any one either. You have an array of machines. I think that's interesting. So that there's this robust technology coming from a number of manufacturers, some in the U.S., some in Europe. Siemens is the one you used using in Kawailoa. And Kahuku, that was
Clipper.
Clipper. There used to be a computer program by that name. I used to program in that Clipper. They don't have it anymore. California, right, Clipper? Or is it the Midwest? I can't remember.
Iowa.
Iowa, that's right.
Rapids,
Iowa, yeah. And then there's GE. Mm-hmm. Ever used GE?
On our Maui project. Yeah, those are all GE turbines.
Okay. And Chinese, everybody says that Chinese have spent a lot of time and money learning about wind turbines, and they must be producing some. But have you used any of those? No.
There are a few Chinese manufacturers. We have not deployed any yet.
Yeah.
We have First Wind has 12 operating wind projects throughout the U.S., mm-hmm. including the 2 we have operating in Hawaii, and we'll have 2 more by the end of this year. We have projects in Maine, a couple of projects in Maine, in Vermont, New York, Utah, and we have sort of satellite offices in different areas where we look at developing wind projects.
Wow! So you're really on the upswing. It's the world is your oyster.
Yeah. Well, we're happy to tell folks the very first project we built was on Maui, Kahiava, 5.5 years ago.
First Wind's first project in the world.
Kahiava.
Was in Kahiava. That is something.
Yep.
Well, I hope there's lots more, First Wind should have a special affinity for Hawaii, no?
Oh, absolutely.
It should recognize Hawaii as a leading, environment for wind.
Well, and it's I think most folks certainly listening know that Hawaii has a special need for renewable energy. We have lots of native renewable energy sources. We have extremely high vulnerability to both the supply and price of oil, because we use a much higher percentage to generate electricity than any other state. So we have a special need here in Hawaii for renewable energy. Wind is going to be a part of that. PV will be a part of it. Geothermal, we have lots of sources to draw on. I think everyone is really hoping that our future includes a much heavier use of all of those renewable energies. And I thought today, I was thinking, what happens when, we build a few more wind projects, and then, what happens? What does First Wind do when we've sort of, built the right amount of wind projects for Hawaii? And I thought to myself, but that's not the end. I mean, the end goal is for all our energy, all our electricity to be produced from renewable sources, so that we're 100% renewable energy.
Sure.
Part of it's going to be wind, part of it's going to be solar, and lots of other technologies. But eventually, and part of it's going to be battery. We're going to need some sort of battery system or storage system so that when wind's not blowing, sun's not shining, magic is not happening.
Is First Wind, I mean, this is a question for later, I suppose, but is First Wind contemplating sources other than wind?
Absolutely.
Has to change its name then.
Absolutely, yeah, that's what it said. First Wind, then something else.
Yeah. Kahiaba Corporation, I like that. Sounds good. Well, anyway, that's really interesting. I made an analysis in my article in the paper yesterday about the speed at which this should happen, and I think one of the things that wind has that's distinguishable is that, as I said before, once you get the permits and all that, which are formidable, you can build it fairly quickly, as opposed to other types of renewables. And speed is everything now, because right now the price of oil is $103 a barrel. But that could shoot up. And at some point on the graph, who knows whether it's $200 or $300 a barrel or $400, you name it, at some point it's going to be sucking so much money out of our economy that we won't have any money left to pay for our energy, to pay for the energy that's coming in oil. We're going to sort of go into a decompensation over that. Our economy's going to fall apart. So what that means is that we have to build renewables now while we still can on an economic basis. That's why, wind is so central, because you can build relatively large parts of it, and we can get to our, 1.2, base load, pretty quickly, hopefully, if we keep on putting in 50 or 100 at a time all over the place. But isn't there a ceiling on wind? Or for that matter, on renewables in general. So if you guys come up with great projects, one after the other, and you're building 100 here and 100 there, and I don't know if you're going to find the places in Oahu to do that, but after a while, you've done it. It's all renewable. End of story. Am I right? What happens?
Then I'm going to write that book you talked about.
Right after the party, right? Well, and that one thing that you mentioned, I think this is really an important, policy point for the company and for renewables in general. When you spoke, Ren, at the Kauailoa, I should say at Kakoa's Kauailoa dedication a few weeks ago, was that First Wind has made a decision. I mean, it's part of the corporate approach is, if the people at a given location don't want the project, you're not going to do the project. And you don't have to perseverate about that. Just don't do the project. It's real simple. And I think you probably save a lot of time and energy and delay when you get to that. And I think Hawaii has to understand that there's no struggle. If the people don't want it, you won't build it. Simple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's our motto at First Wind, is we always start with the community when we look at developing a project of this magnitude. With Kahuku, that particular community was familiar with turbines back in the 80s. Kauailoa, Ren and I do a lot of outreach in the particular communities, and one of the things identified was they want to keep country on the North Shore of Oahu. So, having this wind farm in that community, basically supporting ag in that area and cattle, raising cattle there, it's something that the community believes in. So for us, it's trying to find that niche. How will this project support the goals and the desires of that community hosting the project? So,
well, Kauailoa is one community that was really behind it. Mm-hmm. I mean, not only did you have Kamehameha Schools, which is a very significant player in all this, and I thought a very supportive player, but you also had the Chamber of Commerce, I think it was, the business organizations from Haleiwa, which is the community itself, and they were very much in support. I mean, they came out and spoke passionately about supporting this project. So
we found a lot of, on the North Shore of Oahu, we found a lot of very intense support for renewable energy.
Yeah. And it wasn't always thus. I mean, there are other places, they don't want it. for their own reason. I suggest, by the way, that, referring to Molokai, of course, but I think that over time there's a tipping point here. It's like if you do this and it works and it succeeds and the people in North Shore like it and it gets connected, there's nothing so successful as success. Quote me. And I think every project that's a success is a way of showing people, socializing the idea, of bringing people together around the idea. And I think you're going to find that after a while, there are no communities that don't want this. They're all going to want it. And they're all going to feel like me, that it's the touching of the land and the sky, and it's a ballet and all that. But I think every project that you build brings us closer to a community. I mean, 100% community acceptance. Are you finding a trend in that regard, Kiko?
Well, I think I won't sugarcoat it. There are always folks who are concerned more with the visual impacts of our projects. But I think, as you mentioned, the cost, the increased in cost for oil and other imported fuel has really opened a lot of people's eyes and in understanding what the turbines now represent for Hawaii's economic future.
They represent self-reliance, independence.
Okay, I'm going to pause you guys real quick for this break. And then when we come back, we'll continue the discussion. And then also possibly the future of First Wind after this project. Stay tuned.
Hawaii's Business Authority.
No problems going over to the windward side on the Pali, the Like, the H3, but in Kailua, we do have an accident reported on Kainalu Drive at Ku'ule Road. Drive east to Hawaii Kai is fine both on the freeway and on Kalanianaʻole Highway. Going west, the H1 slows at the west end of the airport viaduct. The Moanalua is slowing down when you get up by Kaiser.
Lex Brody's is celebrating 50 years of keeping Oahu rolling, but their legendary customer service and tires aren't the only things they have to keep you going. Does your vehicle have a fever? Is it overheating? Orthopedics concerns? Ball joints, suspension, knuckles? Under stress? Will it break down? Heat exhaustion? AC not working? Hit a pothole lately and need to see a podiatrist? Foot and tire specialist treating flat tires and bad brakes. Visit Lex Brody's. They're like your family doctor for your car. They perform vehicle checkups, alignments, brakes, oil changes, and more. And they specialize in auto preventative health care. Visit LexBrodys.com and save big on installed Michelin tires and mechanical services. Michelin offers safe, fuel-efficient, long-lasting tires that provide exceptional performance and extraordinary value. Lex Brody's is your alternative to the dealership. ASE and state licensed Hawaii's own Lex Brody's Tire, Brake, and Service Company has won the International Better Business Bureau's 2011 Torch Award for excellence in customer service. Please visit LexBrodys.com for Super Saver mechanical and tire coupons.
Thank you very much, Lex Brody's Tire Company.
Think Tech Radio is also brought to you by the Hawaii Convention Center. The Hawaii Convention Center is Hawaii's convention center. The Hawaii Convention Center is honored to partner with many members of our local community and to host world-class conventions and events from around the world, such as the recent APEC conference, many of whom provide special conference rates and opportunities for local attendees. For more information about the Hawaii Convention Center, visit hawaiiconvention.com. ThinkTech Hawaii is a Hawaii nonprofit corporation organized in the year 2000. Its purpose is to raise public awareness about the importance of technology, energy, agriculture, and globalism to the diversification and expansion of our economy. We do this by television shows on community television and on OC16, by newspaper articles, and by our ThinkTech radio series on KGU 760 AM. We also do it by panel programs and events, including our monthly luncheon programs with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association. ThinkTech, working to raise public awareness in Hawaii. Check us out at thinktechhawaii.com.
You're listening to ThinkTech Radio's Technology and Media Wednesday with your host, Jay Fidel of Bendit Fidel Attorneys at Law.
Okay, welcome back. You're listening to Think Tech on KGU 760 AM with Jay Fidel. I'm Christy Goff again. We're going to continue our conversation on First Wind's great projects in Hawaii. I didn't mean to cut you off last time, Jay.
That's okay.
But if you want to go ahead and start
we
up
need somebody to keep us on the straight and narrow over here. So just a moment back on Molokai for a minute. I think Molokai is a very interesting experience for the state on many levels. Certainly on the government level, it's on the question of how the islands get along with each other. That we've seen interesting issues and other subjects about that. It's a question of the environment, the way people see the environment, the way they see business, the way they see tourism. I mean, all these things intersect, and energy is just one of those things that intersects in Molokai. So you're from Molokai. You were born and raised in Molokai, am I right? Wow.
That's true.
Ren, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I grew up on Molokai, and it's what brought me to First Wind. I would say 5 years ago, First Wind talked to me about, they were interested in developing a project on Molokai with a cable to Oahu. Unique idea. Would I be interested in coming aboard? And, having, I certainly know on Molokai, if the community doesn't support something, it's not going to happen. So, I explained it. Yeah, I can't, if the people don't want it, I can't work on it.
It is what it is, the reality. Yeah.
And the CEO of the company assured me, he said, we will not build a project if people don't want it.
Yeah.
So they were certainly true to their word. When we began on Molokai 5 years ago, there was a lot of support in the community for the project. People were very interested. As the time went on, we were sort of pursuing a land agreement with Molokai Ranch and another one with Hawaiian Homes. We had together they would have made the wind project that we were looking at. That was, on the Hawaiian Homes side, it went very positively. A lot of homesteaders were supportive. On the Molokai Ranch side, we never got anything together with the landowner, never got an agreement together. And then eventually with the Hawaiian Homes parcel, the FAA, there was FAA concerns. It's right near the airport, so it was very limited.
On the west end of
exactly. And so we, eventually said, look, we're not going to be able to make a project here without, some land agreements. And so we essentially exited. Now, since that time, though, and sort of toward the end of that time, some community members on Molokai, specifically starting with those who lived right around where the project was going to be, decided this is not something they wanted, didn't want to look at it, and were opposed to it. And that sentiment really spread. So over the past few years, it seems to me, not being involved, but it seems like there seems to be a fairly widespread opposition to the idea of a large wind farm on Molokai. And that's certainly something that Molokai does well, is when they don't want a development project, they're excellent at stopping it. And I'm from Molokai. I can absolutely appreciate both sides. So I can see why, there's some folks that want the development, want the jobs, want those things. There's other folks on Molokai that they want it to stay. It's one of the only places like that in the universe, and they want to keep it that way. And if the price of that is fewer jobs, less development, that's the price. So that tension has gone on Molokai longer than I've been alive, for sure, and will go on, I'm sure.
It sounds like it.
Me.
Yeah, it really. I think the future of that project is defined already. We know where that sits. And so, not likely to change.
Yeah, and I think everyone learned a lot from that project. We did, the utility did, the state did. The community did. So, and projects have that kind of cycle of people are supportive, and then at some point it may turn and people may go negative on a project. So that does tend to change, and it's interesting to see it play out, especially from a distance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same here. I feel bad in the sense that both of those two islands, Molokai and Lanai, is that one day it's going to be very hard on them because they won't have wind. They won't have the negotiating power of negotiating an agreement, for community benefits, and to be left out of the mainstream. When in fact, I don't think wind would hurt either one of them, and would get them these, substantially reduced rates. The levelization of electric rates around the state, to me, is very appealing.
That's right.
And their view of it really holds that up. It's not going to happen.
Well, I think one of the things that everyone learned from the conversations with Molokai and Lanai community members is that Initially, it was conceived there would be a wind farm with a cable that delivered electricity one way to Oahu. And I think communities were folks are now understanding that a community is not going to go for this unless it's a two-way connection, unless you connect the grids on both islands so that both islands can benefit, so that the neighbor island can benefit from the low-cost generation that we have on Oahu, and so that the whole grid, both islands, can benefit from a much greater penetration of renewable energy. So whether there's a future cable that goes to Maui or one of the other islands, I think that's really going to be the benefit. But the idea of a one-way cable, I think no one believes that's feasible. How do you sell a community and say, hey, we'd like to build our power generating station on your island and then just deliver the power to ours?
I think we're back to the bathtub.
That's right.
Anyway, this will all shake out at some point because I think the cable that was contemplated to Lanai Molokai, right now it's not immediately happening, and the only discussion right now is a cable directly to Maui. And then there's a big question about whether you go from Maui to Big Island and pick up the geothermal, which would really invigorate geothermal. But all that is somehow still in long-term discussion.
Well, it's a few years down the road, but it's part of the RFP for renewable energy projects and the cable that Hawaiian Electric's put out.
Yeah, right. That's due soon, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be due in later this year, a few months. And
you're not going to tell me whether First Wind is making a proposal, are you?
I would be surprised if First Wind didn't make any proposals.
I would too. We'll be watching and waiting on that one. Well, anyway, so I want to talk about the future. I guess part of it we just kind of answered, and that is